Welcome everyone to another episode of OTA on the Air. OTA on the Air is presented by Transport Services. Transport Services is a full-service semi-trailer dealer with locations in Cleveland and Columbus. Since its inception in 1976, Transport Services has grown to over 80 employees and continues to expand. Transport Services focuses on bringing their customers value by offering trailer rental, new and used trailer sales, mobile repair, and over 30 service bays and a parts distribution service. For more information, please go to transportservices.com or contact Brian Brook at 330-573-0401. And this week with us is Director Jack Marchbanks with the Ohio Department of Transportation. Thank you, Director, for joining us today and being a part of this and the leadership that you've shown this year and going into this year as the Director of the Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate those kind words. It's my privilege to serve as a member of Governor DeWine's administration. I think in these challenging times and these unprecedented times, he's proven himself to be a top caliber leader, and proud to be part of his team.
Well, great. So you have a very interesting personal and professional history. Can you please share with the listeners a little bit about your background?
Okay. I'm a working class kid. I grew up the son of a railroad worker. He was a track man, as they used to say back in the day, repairing a track for Frisco Southern, which is now incorporated as a part of Burlington Santa Fe. Grew up in the Dayton area after my mother got tired of my father being away on the railroad, and we settled down, and he became a factory foreman. Went to the University of Dayton on a full scholarship. I was blessed and fortunate to have come up in a time when if you got good grades, you could win a full ride. There are a lot of people who haven't gotten good grades, can't do that these days, but I did. Graduated from the University of Dayton, went on to get my master's in state and local government planning from Clark Atlanta. Came to Columbus, goodness gracious, darn near 42 years ago, right out of college, worked for the Legislative Service Commission. My very first committee, as being assigned as a Legislative Service Commission researcher, was Transportation and Urban Affairs. So I didn't know it then, but that was basically prophesizing my future. So I went on into banking for a while, and then I had the opportunity to come to work for Jerry Ray and Mike Flynn at ODOT District 6 back in 1991. Was there for about 15 years altogether, starting out in business and human resources, moving into planning, and ultimately being appointed director by Jerry Ray in 1997, was reappointed by Governor Taft, and wrapped up my work at District 6 in early January of 2007. Went into the private sector after that, worked for Prime Engineering and Architecture for several years, and decided I wanted to get my bucket list PhD. And I went to Ohio University as a teaching research fellow as a part of the Contemporary History Institute. And I attained my bucket list PhD just a couple of years ago in 2018. But before I had, Jerry Ray actually asked me to come back to ODOT. And I did come back and worked at District 6 for about a year. And then I came downtown on July 2017 to serve as statewide Business and Human Resources Administrator, Assistant Director of Business and Human Resources for Jerry Ray. Threw my hat into the ring, interviewed with Governor DeWine, and he is an intimidating interviewer. He's a prosecutor, and he interviews you like a prosecutor. So I sweated my way through that process and was really pleased when he gave me the call in late 2018. Actually, it might have been first of the year, January 2019, and told me that I was going to be his Director of Transportation. So that brings me to when I met you, when we were moving forward one of the things I told Governor DeWine, Tom, is when I interviewed him, he said, well, what bad news would you give me if I appointed you director? And I said, well, Governor, I want to let you know right now, we have a revenue problem. And he looked at me very, very starkly. And he said, well, what are you talking about? I thought ODOT was in good shape. And I said, well, ODOT has been resourceful in moving money around and borrowing money and being creative with the turnpike revenue bonds, but we haven't had a gas tax increase since 2003. And we are looking at maxing out our bonding ability. So he took that all with a grain of salt. I thought I had lost the interview at that point. I lost the job. And, but he called me back and said, okay, first thing you're gonna have to do, if I appoint you, you're gonna have to help lead this, campaign to get more revenue for our most valuable fixed asset in the state, tangible asset, and that is our infrastructure system, of course, upon which your clients, your colleagues run their valuable big rigs. So we were successful. We were just talking about that prior to us coming online, Tom. It's a clean campaign, a hard fought campaign, and the citizens of Ohio through their General Assembly members have chosen to invest in our system. And goodness gracious, I'm so thankful we did, because had we not done that last year, we would have been in the same position as Kentucky and Michigan, canceling projects, even though we have not attained the revenue we wanted to, of course, because of the COVID-19 impacts on our economy. We are still far ahead of where we would have been. We will still have $766 million more than we would have had that revenue package not gone through. And that's looking like that's still a great investment in Ohio. So that's my background, and that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So tell us a little bit about how the revenue for the department is generated and how those dollars are spent.
Well, the Ohio Department of Transportation is unlike some of the other large state DOTs, such as Georgia and California and even Illinois. They get in Michigan, they get sales tax, they get excise tax. They have a menu of revenue streams that they access. But with the state of Ohio, 98% of what we exist on is motor vehicle fuel tax. Our highway operating fund is totally dependent, darn near, on motor vehicle fuel tax from the state and from the federal government. So we utilize gas tax and diesel. And now through the General Assembly, we are also accessing a stream of fees from electronic vehicle registrations. So put that all together, and that constitutes our revenue base.
So you talked a little bit about the impact of the stay-at-home orders on fuel tax collections.
Yes.
I guess how far off, if you can even guess that at this point, are revenues, and what is the department's strategy to deal with those shortfalls?
Well, that's a very timely question, one that the governor himself asked me about a month ago. And we got on top of this problem early, Tom. We saw as early as late February that COVID was going to impact our revenue stream, because if people aren't driving, if trucks aren't rolling, there's not money being generated at the pump, and there's not money coming here. To answer your question, our worst month thus far was April. We were 33% under our revenue projections. We're anticipating worst case scenario that we will be 30% under revenue projections, which knocks us down approximately, it'll be $54 million for us for this year. And that will be, when I say 54 million, we'll be off, instead of 800, we were expecting to get $820 million additionally. We've scaled that back to $766 million additionally. So that's about $54 million. We're going to take a $29 million hit, ODOT, in terms of a lower revenue projection. Local governments will take a $25 million hit. And again, it depends. 2021, we're still calculating. Worst case scenario, we could be down a couple $100 million. but we're hoping it doesn't go that badly. We hope that the economy comes back. People are driving, and we have to thank the trucking industry for all they do, and of course, being essential workers, the big rigs and the freight industry continuing to deliver the vital services that they do have helped us, because you're a vital part of our revenue base and a great partner in us keeping Ohio moving and keeping the economy going.
So you had said a number of times during the highway budget process that if the fuel tax was not increased, there would be no new projects.
Correct.
What projects would have or did that fuel tax allow as far as new projects go?
Well, for members of the trucking industry, I think it's vital to recognize that the interstates and interstate lookalikes are the most vital transportation conduits that you use. And we were able to move forward with improvements on Interstate 75 up in Lima. And we also were able to move forward with vital projects in the Columbus area, 7071. And we're looking at projects also down over in 70 with Clark. That's a project that moves forward on the track widening 70 in Clark County. So these are projects that move forward. In regards to projects that we may have to move out, we were very clear that improvements were the last part of the puzzle. Of course, we need these improvements and these pinch points in our urban areas. But if things continue to run under projections and even become more dire, we will have to push out some of those major interstate projects in cities such as Akron and delaying some in Columbus and Cincinnati. But we did have several projects move forward, mostly in the Toledo area, and other projects in the Cleveland, Akron area that moved forward because of that revenue increase. Again, even with COVID, we're $766 million ahead of where we would have been.
So I'm going to jump ahead on our questions a little bit because you talked about some major projects. Let's talk about the elephant in the room as far as the Brent Spence Bridge. You know, it's been a conversation that's been going on for decades. You know, and there's obviously some jurisdictional concerns on that. Is do you ever see that that project being fixed? Do you see there being a solution? What does that path look like, knowing how important that is from an economic development standpoint of a major north-south corridor?
Yes, Brent Spence Bridge is on our mind every week and perhaps almost every day. I just had a conversation with earlier this week with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet. That's what they call the DOT in Kentucky, the KYTC. His name is Jim Gray. Fine gentleman. He realizes that even though there has been in Kentucky reluctance to deal with the revenue package, the revenue financing instruments, let's just say it plainly, the tolling necessary for a Brent Spence Bridge replacement. And what people need to realize, the current Brent Spence Bridge is going to stay there. You know, we're going to use that. It's still a functional bridge. It's just, you know, obsolete in terms of how it's designed. But we are looking at moving forward with creating an interstate compact, which will set up the governance and the financing package. So this is something that Governor DeWine has on his to-do list for his first term. We just recently sent to Secretary Gray a bi-state agreement, which allows us to continue design work on both sides of the river. We are currently working on advancing some Interstate 75 improvements that are upstream from the Brent Spence footprint, but are pretty much right across from some of the developments that are going on in Cincinnati. So we are looking at that project at least being legally, in terms of a governmental structure, set up to move forward. If you're asking me to crystal ball it, I would think that we would have a financing plan in place by 2022. Finally, agreement with Kentucky and Ohio. with Governor DeWine and Governor Beshear signing off on that. And from there, we can move forward. So you're looking at a Brent Spence Bridge project. You know, if everything fell into place and we had an agreement today, Tom, you're still looking at, you know, a 5-year process.
So what other large projects do you that are out there that the department has planned in the future that you think the trucking industry would be interested in?
Well, we are very keen, very keen to finish the I-70-71 Crossroads project. The Gordian knot in that project is 315, 70, and 71 on the west edge of the city of Columbus. For those who drive through here, it's right over the river. We are in heated discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers in regards to all the things we have to do with our 408 permitting process, all the things we have to do when we get in the water, as the engineers say, to take care of those structures that will have to go over the Scioto. That will be dependent on how quickly we can recover from the COVID downturn. We are hoping that we can limit any delays to 1 year. So you will be looking at construction happening on the west side of that project's footprint. Again, right now, anyone driving through Columbus will see all the work going on in front of Nationwide Children's Hospital. That's the east interchange. Just north of that, you will see work going on with the Broad Street Bridge. That's a little bit north there, but that work will be done in 2021. And so what we're looking at is 4R, which is one of the next pieces that we'll be doing, again, that gets at that Gordian knot. So that's a key project. We also want to work on 77 and in the Akron area. That is critical to get that done. And of course, we are happy to be getting that corridor done up north and northwestern Ohio with 75 going up to Toledo. We're currently now in Allen County, widening 75 through the Findlay area. So that will help that massive freight movement that comes out of Canada, that comes out of the Detroit area, and of course gets down to Kentucky, gets down to Cincinnati, and gets stuck at the Brent Spence Bridge. but we're looking at moving on with all those projects. The other one that we're excited about, and I'm personally excited about it, is because I grew up in that area and I saw it for a long time. It's Clark County will be finished. So the Clark County 70 widening, that's important to the trucking industry. We are looking at that being done this year. And that will, of course, give you 3 lanes to from Columbus to the Ohio-Indiana border. Just a little, I think it necks down right before you get to Indiana, but that's an important project, and we are moving forward with that.
Yeah, and for the listeners, the Gordian knot in Columbus is always number 2 from an Ohio perspective on the ATRI bottlenecks report, with Brent Spence obviously being number 1, but that interchange is number 2 as far as bottlenecks go. So it's good to see the department is prioritizing that one as best they can. And obviously we talked a little bit about Brent Spence as well. So the Ohio legislature came short in the funds you said the department needed moving forward. They did a great job of putting together a package, but when we took a look at the total needs on transportation and then the shift of money to the locals of the new money compared to what it normally was, the department didn't come out as they came out better than what they were, much better than what they were, but maybe not as far as what we needed to do. Does the agency believe there's going to need to be further revenue enhancements moving forward?
It is just my opinion, Tom, and I don't speak for Governor DeWine on this particular point. I think we are close in regards to the revenue stream we'll need, but what we have to do absolutely, and I think COVID-19 showed us this, is that we have to preserve the revenue stream we have. So I will be asking the governor to consider indexing in the next budget bill. It's something that we wanted in the first, but the political math and strategy did not allow that to happen. So we're thinking that it's something that the legislature will at least consider. We hope they consider it favorably because we believe that's necessary to keep us whole. We don't want to fall back. We saw what happened with inflation with the relatively small 6% increase we had back during the Taft administration. If that had been indexed, we wouldn't have been so far behind last year when we went after this most recent revenue package.
So I'm gonna go off script a little bit, but I know you can handle it. So what are you hearing on the federal level? What do you know when the feds have been discussing highway funding? They just passed a highway bill out of the House.
Yes.
Really no pay-fors involved. What are your colleagues talking about from a federal assistance package piece looking like?
Well, it's ironic that you would ask that question. I just recently participated in a transportation policy forum meeting with the American Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials. That's all 50 state DOTs plus the 2 territories. It's kind of like our lobbying interest group. And what we asked for in the most recent CARES package was $50 billion in terms of a backstop. The original thinking was that all the state DOTs, and when you put together an average 30% drop off, which we predicted way back in February, and revenues as a revenue stream as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, when you added all the numbers together, when you did the math, that would amount to about $50 billion to keep the state DOTs whole, to keep them all on where they wanted to be with their own gas tax scenarios. Now that has been scaled back to $36 billion, 36.7. The indications are not good that there is going to be any infrastructure money in the HEROES Act that's being discussed right now. Recently talked with representatives of Senator Portman and some of our leading Ohio contractors who, of course, are in favor of robust infrastructure spending and, of course, a reauthorization of the FAST Act. We are thinking that we are on our own. Ohio will have to take care of itself until there's a reauthorization of the FAST Act. Could lightning strike and someone put money into the HEROES Act that they're discussing now? Yes, but I'm 66 years old and I luckily haven't been struck by lightning yet and don't want to be. But that could happen. But right now we're thinking that we have to stick with our conservative scenario and that there will not be any additional infrastructure funding. However, if there was, we have targeted projects that we would move forward with. Again, we have projects waiting on money. I have had our chief engineer, Lloyd McAdam, line up projects that I talked to you earlier that we have had to delay some of those track projects, that $150 million that the revenue package got us for track. Some of those projects are going to be delayed because our primary function at the Ohio Department of Transportation is to take care of what we have, to keep the system in a state of good repair. Of course, we want to fix the bottlenecks. Of course, we want to fix 7071, take care of the central interchange in Akron, take care of Brent Spence, but we have a huge system. We're in the top 5 in almost every category in terms of lane miles, second largest number of bridges in the state, pardon me, in the nation. So we are focused on taking care of what we have. But if we got that extra money, we would immediately put it on those projects that we have put on hold or at least delayed.
For the attendees, just to remind you, the Q&A queue is open. If you do have any questions for the director, I'm kind of winding down to my last couple of questions. So if there are questions, please feel free to put them in the queue. Really going to shift gears on you now and go to a maintenance side.
Yes.
So does the department have alternatives to magnesium chloride and calcium chloride to treat the roads, knowing the impact that they have to truck frames and bodies?
Well, we're looking at using other products. You know, we do look at beet heat and other salt melting products. But again, we are doing a lot more brining, which is still salt, but it's not as intensive as rock salt. We have to keep the system safe, and we'd rather have, you know, the complaints of salt rather than accidents and, you know, multi-vehicle pileups, often involving big rigs. So we are considering other projects. One of the things that the governor charged me with doing is being cutting edge and finding what products are out there. Are we doing the best things we can? Often in conversation with Lori Stevenson, our Ohio EPA director, we are looking at avoiding salt where we can, but it still is, you know, the core of how we take care of snow and ice removal.
And then another question that's obviously the governor had rolled out his plan to make distracted driving a primary offense. I guess what for you are you seeing from an accident standpoint is distracted driving having on Ohio roads?
Well, it was already bad, Tom, but you combine distracted driving with speed. I think there was a recent announcement from Colonel Fambro, head of the Highway Patrol, and Tom Stickraff, our Department of Public Service Director, that the Ohio Highway Patrol has handed out a record number of 100-mile-per-hour plus speeding tickets. I think it went up over 50 tickets, maybe even closer to 100 over this time last year. We are still bullish on moving forward with a distracted driving primary offense law. We are looking at perhaps pursuing it in the fall in the lame duck. I was just talking with our legislative services chief, Will O'Gorman, about the prospects of getting that law in front of the Ohio General Assembly and possibly getting it passed. We think it's critical to the safety of your association members, those truckers out there who are doing their best to stay safe. But if you have a distracted driver in the mix, there's very little they can do if someone is going to basically do something unpredictable because they're looking at their phone. We are looking at moving forward with that legislation. The prospects, of course, depend on what kind of support we get out of the Ohio General Assembly.
All righty, we're going to talk a little bit real quick about our schedule moving forward, and then it gives everyone an opportunity to ask any questions if they have them. So we are actually moving to every other week now after this one. So August 6th will be Jeremy Reimer from Driver Reach. August 20th will be Rebecca Brewster from Atri. September 3rd will be Steve Bryan from Samba Safety. Both of those are keynote speakers at our annual conference, which will be in person in September, here in Columbus at Ohio State University's Marriott. And then September 17th will be Doug Cibula from People's Services going forward. So Director, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you again for all of your leadership through what I would imagine is some extremely difficult times. I can't imagine the first thing out of the chute when you start a new job is going to the legislature and asking for a gigantic increase in taxes. But we were happy to be there for you and support the work that you all are doing. In fact, I believe after the final deal was cut, you and I walked past each other in the hallways of the Capitol, and I said, use it wisely, and you said, I will. So we appreciate you using it wisely. So again, thank you for being with us today, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Tom. And again, I wanted to say thank you to all your members. You know, I didn't get a chance to say that, you know, you're a vital part of the economy, not only for Ohio, but the entire United States. Other industries literally depend on what you do to do their business. You know, without delivery of goods for the production and manufacturing that sustains our livelihood, we wouldn't have an economy. So again, thank you, trucking industry members. we are happy to be your partners in keeping Ohio mobile and providing the safe and easy movement of people and goods from place to place.
Great. Director, thank you again, and we will talk to everyone here in 2 weeks.
All right, take care, everybody.